Hey, so you are here, huh? So don't throw X. And when I say X, don't think about your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. We are talking about here the exception X. So we're going to talk about three approaches today. One, we are going to throw the exception. Second, where we are not going to throw the exception for sure. And the third approach, that we will wrap the inner exception. And then we will see that am I totally making sense or I'm just talking stupid things, right? Okay, other than that, we will also see that these things behave same in the build and release, or they behave differently. So let's go ahead and take a look. Here we are in the Visual Studio, and if you guys have already watched my previous video, which was basics of exception handling, so over there also I have talked little about that. But in this video, I'm going to talk more deeper about that throw exception topic. Okay, so we have three files that is going to help us. One is that program.cs file, because we are using this console application. Second is employee service class. Third is person service class. So what we are doing here in the person service class, we have two methods. Let's say control MO from the keyboard to minimize. Okay, you see we have only one class, which is person service, then one method which is get person full name, and then the other method make full name, right? The logic is very simple, very simple. What it is trying to do, it is getting person DTO and it is trying to return the full name, because the name is get person full name. And over here we have created other method, and what it does, it is just concatenating the things, and that's it, right? And all these two methods are wrapped inside try catch. If you notice here, the special thing that this method, this catch is parameterless. We don't have any type of exception here. We are not throwing the exception. We are just saying throw, but don't throw exception. Just throw it. Okay. And over here also. So this class, person service class, is not throwing the exception. But if you look at the employee service class, it is the opposite, right? The logic is again same. Instead of getting person name, we are trying to get employee full name here, and everything is same. Every logic is same, just concatenating, right? And inside try catch, the difference thing is here we were not throwing the exception. Here we are throwing the exception. This X exception, we are throwing the exception, right? Okay. Now jump to program class, which is going to call these two classes. Okay. So we have this try catch already here, try catch, try catch. So in the first try, we will try to call the person service class. Let's call person service class, let's say person service, and we will say this is object name, and now we will initialize the constructor. Here you go. So this is done. Now we will call a method, say person service get person full name. Now my objective today that I wanted to break the application so I can focus on the concept of that throw. Okay, so since it was expecting something person DTO, to break the application, I will just say null. Then this class won't be happen, it will start throwing the exception. So let's in the catch, what we will do, let's say console, here you go, console.writeLine, and over here we will say what we have to say. We should say that this person service is not throwing the exception. Let's say person service class, let's say class don't, and we will say, hey, don't throw what? Don't throw the X, right? So this was our objective. Now we will concatenate something that would be your X, right? Okay, here you go. And what we all have to do, we will say console.writeLine new. Or what we will do, let's say let's add this equal to differentiate between these two methods, person service and employee service. So what all I have to do now, I will initialize other class, which is employee service. So let's say employee service, and say employee service object name is this and this, and give me the object, and it is going to give me the object now. So here you go. It says the same logic, get employee full name. Here you go. Okay, again, I wanted to break this application also. So I will pass the null, right? Let's just copy this, paste it over here. And instead of person service, I will say this is employee service, and don't throw, instead of don't throw, I will say throw the X. Okay. And let's, add space for better console print. Okay. Now let's see what happened and what's the difference between these two. throw or don't throw. Let's see, let's take a look. Okay, so it start throwing. It has to, because we are passing invalid parameter, because I don't want to spend time on the debugging. Let's look at this console. Okay, let's make it maximize. Now if you see here, this person service class where we are not throwing the exception, it is giving me, for sure the error was object reference because we are passing null, but it is giving me 3 lines, right? Those 3 methods which we called here. The first method, the program.cs, from here, this main, in the person service, this was the second method. Over here, it was the third method. Now, it is giving me all those 3. But it is starting from person service where the exception occurred, right? The last method. Now, what we are trying here, if you look at over here, let's go to program class. We are saying, this exception, right? So when you say EX, it is giving you the complete exception, whether stack trace or not. So basically these that you see, these are coming from the stack trace, right? And when I say stack trace, what stack trace is? It is like report of the error, report of the exception where it was thrown, right? Now, why it is calling stack trace? So if you remember in the college time or in our programming world, we read about 2 concepts. One is stack and second is queue. In stack, it works on LIFO principle. That means last in would be first out. And same concept here. If you look at now, person service line number 24, where it was failed last, person service line number 24. Here you go. This was failed at the last. That is why I'm saying it is fetching from the stack trace. That is line number 24. And after that, what was the line number? It's a line number 11, right? Line number 11. And now then program.cs line number 15. So line number 15, right? That is why it is calling as stack trace. Okay. Now the second, where we are throwing the exception, it is not preserving the full history. That means it is not keeping the complete stack trace. Though all of these details are coming from the stack trace, but still, these stack trace where you were not throwing the exception, it was giving you the full history. But over here, this is not giving us the full history. What it says, yeah, for sure, this is the error, but it says, I'm going to give you only the very basic detail, right? Because you were throwing me out of your life. That's why I don't care about you, and I'm going to give you, very little details. And that is how, our ex also behave in our personal life. They don't pass much information when we are not in the relation. So same concept here. Okay. Now it says, here that employee service line number 16. So if you go to employee service line number 16, throw X. And next program.cs line number 28. So if you go here, it says line number 28. Where is that? Line number 28. Here you go. This one, right? Yes, line number 28. Now, you know what? Other than this complete history, there was one more difference. And that difference is that it was exactly giving you exact line where it was failed, right? So it was saying you line number 24, this one, then line number 11, this one. And then over here in the program class, line number this one, right? 15, you see? But over here, it's a line number 16 only, and then line number 28. So what was the line number 16 in the employee service? Line number 16 is what? Throw. So it don't give you the exact thing where it was failed. It is just tell you that it was failed at the catch, right? This, when you throw the exception, it will always giving you the catch point. It will always give you the history from catch, not from the try, right? But when you don't throw the exception, it is going to give you the history from the try block. And when you throw the exception, it is going to give you the history from catch block. So that is the other difference. Okay, now you know what? Is it going to behave same in the release mode or not? So let's try that. Now let's rebuild one more time here. Okay, now here you go. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's refresh to make sure DL files were reloaded. Let's execute this. Okay, so now we don't have to go through all those breakpoints. So now you see, let's see if it's the same or not. Oh, I see it is same, right? So line number 24, 11 and 15, line number 16 and 21. So that means we are safe. When our code get deployed over, the production, for sure it would be in the release mode. So that means yes, it is going to behave the same. That is something, you know, peaceful, and I can be double sure that, you know, I would have the complete history when I don't throw the exception. Okay, now let's close it. Let's go back and talk about the third approach. Okay, and what was the third approach? That is something, you know, what we all have to do here. Let's say here you go. What we have to do, we have to look at the inner exception. So there is something called inner exception as well. So if I say ex dot inner exception is not equal to null, right? So let's say this one, else let's say no inner exception found, right? So let's print this as well. Let's say here you go, I will say no inner exception is found, right? Here you go. Okay, now let's try to print out the inner exception. And what do we have to do? We have to say this is inner exception, right? So let's say this. Okay, now let's print the inner exception. What all I have to do, e dot x, this one, right? So dot should be stack trace. Let's get the stack trace, right? So it was over here, even it was also stack trace. So when you don't specify, you know, stack trace, for sure then it will give you the everything, right? So over here, let's try to exact, you know, just stack trace, and we will do the same thing over here also, right? So even here. Okay, now let's format this. Now let's compare, you know, does that make any sense or not? Okay, so let's build it. Now go to debug mode, back to, so let's debug, let's rebuild, and now let's execute it and let's see how it behaves. Okay, so that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Go, 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 go. Okay, this is what I care. Okay, so let's see what it says. Oh, no inner exception is found. No inner exception is found. Okay, that's fine. So why it is saying, you know, such things? Because of this. So I said, you know, 3 approaches. So what all I have to do for the inner exception, I will go here. Let's say, you know, what I will do, not in the person service. Let's focus on the employee service, right? Instead of throwing the super exception, right? This exception is super exception. Now what I will say, I wanted to throw some specific exception. For example, this was a reference error, right? So there should be something called null reference exception. And here I will say this is inner exception. Let's say this is inner exception. Okay, and let's say this is inner exception, and what we will do, we will pass that exception as well. Okay, cool. Now let's do same thing over here. So instead of throwing super exception, I will say I'm going to throw this null reference exception. Let's go and let's try to do. Okay, so let's go, go, come on. Okay, here you go. You see a bunch of things we have now. So this was for person service, right? And over here, so person service is out because we were not throwing the exception here. Only employee service is in the game because we were throwing the exception. So you see, the time you said, you know, this throw new null reference exception, not super exception, we have, you know, this inner exception, right? For the first one, no inner exception is found, but here this inner exception is found, right? We have the same logic. Over here, you see, when there is a no null, that means inner exception is there. We were printing something, right? Inner exception. Now you see, what it says that it is giving us those complete details, make full name, the exact method name, right? So you see, make full name and where line number 29. So let's go there into employee service, line number 29, right? So that is again same. What is same, that, you know, it is when you throw something, it is going to give you inside the catch, not the try block, right? But it is giving you more detail with the method name. It says make full name, right? And you say this says make full name. Perfect. Now second thing, it says get employee full name, which is this here, right? You know, before it was not giving you that complete details. What it was trying to do, it was saying only, you know, from where it was started from main, right? This line number, which is like this catch block failed from program.class, right? This was failed, and then it was going to employee service and only this, right? But it was not giving you these details. But now difference is that it is not giving you details of what was the first point, right? So you see, there is no clue of a program.class file. there is only employee service class file involved, and that is also those two methods. Now let's see, is it also going to give you the complete details in the employee service, right? And if I have that trace with throwing the exception with this, not with super exception, then I can throw the exception, right? So let's go ahead. What we will do, let's go ahead and create a one method just to break the application, right? So what we will do here, instead of returning this, I will call this method, right? And let's see, even I should have these three methods in the logs or not, that stack trace is keeping the history for this as well or not, right? So let's what it says, okay, I have to return this. Now it should be happy. Let's execute. Okay, so let's see, this is going to be interesting. Let's okay, so I should have somewhere, I think I need to, it is not here. Let's one more, come on. Okay, now you see, okay, here you go. So when you say inside the inner exception, you don't have the full history. It is keeping only those two methods, right? It has skipped the first method from where the call was initiated. Then on the next level, it kept only two history. One that, after the first method where it went to employee service, and this was the first call. Then this was the second call. It is not giving you the same history when you are not throwing the exception. So that means when you don't throw the exception, that is more good, because you have the complete history. You don't lose the history. When your code is in the production, you would have more option, you would have more clear logs to investigate the issues, what exactly happened. But when you try to throw the exception, you are losing the history, whether you go for inner exception or whether you throw the complete exception. So with this, I hope I'm able to make sense and I'm able to prove why I'm saying don't throw the X. So that's all for today's video. I will see you in the next video.